What is a ghost? I mean, really? Is it a simple figment of the imagination? An optical illusion? Maybe it's something demonic or otherwise religiously connected. Or maybe, for some, it's an alternative to religion. Most religions promise life after death, but you have to practice blind faith. The paranormal also promises life after death, but with proof up front that doesn't require blind faith. There is no doubt that there are things out there that defy logic and can be very hard to explain. But does that make them paranormal? Ghosts? Spirits? Apparitions, if you will? I don't know. So I decided to start looking for answers by delving into the possible existence of Casper and Company.
May I have a look, mister?
Sure, Sonny. Step right. Huh? A ghost!
No matter what time frame you look at in the history of mankind, there are always stories about paranormal activity. Some are for nights around the campfires, while others do hold great significance to the legitimacy of religion. Ever hear of that carpenter that sacrificed himself for the greater good and then rose from the dead? Usually allegedly haunted spots have had some kind of dramatic death take place, crucifixions included.
If you're going to have a haunted location, it has to have some kind of horrible thing happen there, or anything that would have a large emotional burst before the death, I would assume would have the most potential. I guess I would go with. Massacre sites from Indian wars, stuff like that, to me would have the greatest impact to have the potential to be haunted.
The paranormal is the paranormal. It could be, I know that the emphasis is on ghost hauntings and things like that. But any unexplained phenomena has always interested me because I wanted to know why people had these experiences. What exactly was it? And as I got a little bit older and started to kind of build my knowledge base, then it became a kind of thing, well, is this environmental? Is it psychological? Are there outside forces? Is it just part of the human condition that people see and hear these things?
Ghost hunting goes way back in history too, but it really took off in October of 2004 thanks to the continued emergence of reality TV. The Sci-Fi Channel premiered Ghost Hunters, and coverage of the things that go bump in the night was never the same. Interest in it took off as well. Suddenly, everyone and their cousin were walking around in the middle of the night trying to get some form of proof that spirits are out there. Unfortunately, any rock-solid proof that can't be debated still has not been found. For me, 2010 was the year I decided to start testing out these paranormal theories myself. I wanted to shoot a day in the life of paranormal investigators. We met up with the group from Cape Cod. The location was the Peter Rice Homestead in Marlborough, Massachusetts. Not only does this house look creepy inside and out, but with it dating back to 1688, if ghosts exist, you'd no doubt find them here.
If you can walk across this floor, we can hear your footsteps.
What the hell?
Right behind me.
I didn't notice that earlier. I kind of swept the area.
That's the sound.
That's the exact bang.
Wow. In that moment, I learned two things. One, when scared or startled in this kind of setting, I won't urinate myself, which is good. And two, ghosts have to be real because I just had a personal experience. Or so I thought I did, until I reviewed the footage from my own camera. How can you not look at this and question the validity of the experience I just had? Right where that investigator was kneeling were plenty of packing beads, which is what was tossed my way a few minutes after we see him there. What the hell? I have a lot of respect for the group of investigators we teamed up with that night and their co-founders. They are great guys who believe in finding real evidence of the paranormal. When I shared this footage with them, they were not happy that one of their own might have fabricated this experience. I did just what they do when there is a chance that evidence could be tarnished in any way. I threw it out. I no longer think I had a paranormal experience back in 2010 in the attic at the Peter Rice Homestead.
What the hell?
I know one thing for sure. Even the most rational minds can play tricks in the dark. And that is what happened to me. I bought the farm because we were in the attic of a creepy old house in the pitch black. This is Brian Simmons and Sean Viveros. They are the co-founders of New England Ghost Hunters, a paranormal investigation team that is always on the hunt for those ever-elusive spirits. The big difference between them and other ghost hunting groups is that when they say they are going into a supposedly haunted place with a neutral mindset, they actually mean it. What also makes them different is that they are history hunters as well. They love going into older places just for the experience. They don't necessarily have to find paranormal evidence to consider an investigation a success.
We want to believe in it, so we're open to it, but we're going to do everything in our power to prove it wrong first, just so, because we're not doing this to prove to the world that ghosts exist. We're doing it literally for us, to prove to ourselves. It's not about trying to make people believe, because you're not going to make people that don't believe in ghosts.
I'm seeking the truth, always seeking the truth. So I like to go out with him and hear the stories, and my position is I'm trying to debunk these. I'm trying to find the real source behind it.
If you watch some of the ghost hunting shows on television, then you know that no respectable investigator would be caught dead, no pun intended, on a ghost hunt without the following pieces of equipment.
So you see that there? These lights will actually light up depending on the Gauss. So anything that's electrical should give off signal. So as I get close to the monitor, you can actually see the second light starting to come up.
In theory, spirits produce and can manipulate magnetic fields at will. They can communicate through it. That is something that can be picked up by the K2 meter. EMF detectors are one of the most recognizable pieces of equipment used in ghost hunts. The theory is that when spirits are present, they will affect the magnetic field in the room. Infrared cameras are also used because they can shoot in the dark. Ghost hunts don't have to be conducted in the dark, but they are because A, it cuts down on the amount of daytime noise that can affect any potential evidence, and B, it looks really cool on TV. Temperature gauges are used too. Another theory of spirits manifesting themselves is that they need to use up energy in a room to do so. That can take heat out of the room and therefore drop the temperature. Digital audio recorders and digital cameras are also mainstays in the quest to capture proof of dead people.
Who closed the door?
This thing's made of solid steel.
There are different kinds of haunts. As you could assume, ghosts are a very complicated species, so naturally, they come from different tribes. Residual haunts are where the ghost or spirit repeats itself. For instance, you see a figure that walks down a hall and then disappears. That is the only thing you ever see from that particular spirit. According to those educated in this field, it's like a record player playing the same song over and over again. It does nothing else and does not interact with the living. Intelligent haunts are human-like spirits that can mess with you or speak if they want to, but you have to have the right equipment to hear what they are saying. These spirits are associated with a dead person. They may not know how to move on from the dimension that they find themselves in currently, or they just don't want to leave. Then there is the demonic entities. If these suckers exist, I don't ever want to see one. They are very malicious and violent, and unlike dear old dead Uncle Albert, have never been human. They can possess a person's body, and if you are a fan of movies like The Exorcist, they like to spew pea soup. Poltergeists are intelligent ghosts that can also get physical by throwing and breaking objects. Then there are shadow people. They are called this because in the ghost hunting world, there is no real spiritual label to give them. They are dark and smoky, and not really thought of as either a spirit or something demonic. They must be a very confused bunch. The New England ghost hunters took us to the Colonial Inn in Concord, Massachusetts. The original structure goes back to 1716. Of course, being this old and in Concord, Massachusetts, you can bet it certainly had American Revolution connections. It was used as a storehouse for arms and provisions in 1775. It's also been used as a boarding house and a small hotel. They went right to work setting up the equipment because they do their research ahead of time and not for the cameras. Unlike some other heavily produced TV shows, there was no need to get a tour or ghost stories. They already knew where they wanted to set up.
A lot of claims, but they're basically, I want to say, from about 65 and newer. But the history of the inn goes back to, it started in 1716, they built it. We're in the second edition of the inn right now. When the British attacked at Northbridge, half a mile down the road, Thomas Minot was the doctor in the town. The room we're in are where the actual injured people were taken from the battle. So essentially that was his office, if you will. So people have died there. So that's probably a more common history on why it should be haunted.
In the room 24, you'll actually see there's actually 2 Confederate soldiers up there. Not Confederate soldiers, colonial soldiers. No one actually knows if it's actually on the British side or on the militia side. But a lot of times people wake up where they'll hear sounds, they'll wake up, they'll see at the foot of their bed actually 2 men standing there, and they'll be kind of dressed in like a gray, kind of a soldier's uniform, but it'll be all like torn up with, kind of bloody rags on them. And that's actually at the foot of the bed. And on the closet door in room 24, there's the doctor, as he mentioned, Minot. And a lot of people have seen him and actually heard him, and you actually see the gray mist kind of coming up, and people refer that as the doctor. The staircase right here, people have seen a woman dressed in all white in Victorian era clothing, actually coming down the stairs, and they've also heard children playing at the top of the stairs, so on the runway leading up to room 24.
I'm just go mark them with this.
I gotta get batteried up, so you go ahead and do that.
All right.
Orbs are something I left off of our original Most Wanted Spirits list, and for good reason. Every group I've talked to say it's just dust, or in some cases, insects. Orbs get a lot of attention with many ghost hunters because it's something that they commonly see, and in a field where you can go many investigations and get nothing, it's always something to fall back on.
Time and time again, under our investigations, it's just always dust, and it's one of those things where you just walk by it and it's just kicking up dust off of furniture, anything off of the shades, off of the curtains, and you'll actually see it come on pretty heavily and then settle down over time.
So the New England ghost hunters begin their investigation. While the cameras roll in room 24 and record to their DVR, the crew heads down to the basement. Why not? Let's go down into the creepy, tight, claustrophobic basement. There have been claims down here of people feeling like they are being watched or that they are not alone. Electromagnetic fields can cause lightheadedness and feelings of paranoia in those that are sensitive to high electric fields. With all the juice flowing through this building, it would stand to reason that we would get high readings. Now, with the amount of electricity running through these pipes, isn't it normal to get people to feel creeped out down here?
Let's find out. Let's find out.
This thing's huge.
The claustrophobia aspect of it.
Yeah.
Just being so close
I'm
to the
trying
wall.
not to think of that. Thanks.
Yeah.
We're already at it.
Yeah, you're
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hanging around, just bouncing around.
may I see it?
you just gotta go slow with it, let it sit around it, and it'll kind of go up.
Well, that's like upstairs. It's all electronic stuff. That Zoom place that she said.
That's a good way to see how they actually
Yeah.
work,
It's going red.
It is creepy.
Yeah, it's pretty high up there.
All right, this is Sean in the basement at the Colonial Inn. This is we believe to be the 3rd section. I'm just going to do an EVP. There's a lot of stories of, I think his name was Charlie, or it was something along the lines of that. Was down here one time, and the wall just kind of broke apart on him, and he thought it was odd because at the same time he thought he heard footsteps of somebody around him. So we're here, and we just want to see if there's anyone else here with us. Now, there's also a story of a woman coming to a man in his room and saying she was murdered. And he believes she might have been buried down here without anyone ever knowing. Is that woman here with us today? Is she washing her hands? Because that's the sound of water. Now, if she is here, can you make a sound for us? A distinct sound, like maybe like a knock, or maybe there's a lot of cans on the shelf back there. Maybe you can knock a can over for us. Just let us know you're here. We can help you. There's also a lot of noise here. We can hear water, we can hear a heater, we can hear the air blowing through the vent. But we can't hear you. Is there anything you can do to help us?
The investigation of the basement turned up nothing, so NEGH, as I like to call them now, decided to turn their attentions back to room 24. What are we doing first here, Sean?
Well, we're going to get some baselines, but I also have my voice recorder, so we're going to turn this on, go through with a thermometer. We have the K2 meter, so we're going to try to get like a baseline of the room, just so as far as reference, if we experience anything, we can actually refer back to the baseline and see if any of the parameters have changed.
The first thing that Brian does is take base readings of the temperature in the room. A matter of a couple of degrees will not catch their eye. What would is a change of 10 degrees or more.
Right now, Sean's taking a K2 meter, which is going to measure the electromagnetic field. Just seeing if there's like anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah, it's pretty much normal all the way through, except for the that corner there goes to about 2 bar.
Well, right outside, there's a big sign. When I was out there, I took a picture of it. It has 2 giant floodlights facing it, so
That's part of the reason.
that's probably going to be a good indicator. So set that.
And typically we set the K2 meter in the middle of the room. That one's particularly nice because it allows us to visually see if there's anything changing. This one will actually, any fluctuation will start to, you'll see the extra light turn on. And then we have the other one there, the black one, will actually use as a reference to see if this one lines up with the other K2 meter.
You may have seen in other shows where you can actually talk to a paranormal experience or whatever, and you can use that to try to say, hey, come near the light, turn the light to another color. You see that a lot. It's probably going to be the main thing that we'll do with it. If we get anything on it or anything near it, you know, that's pretty much what we'll be using that for.
Have you ever had that experience where something comes near, and by answering a question or something like that, by a command of asking them to come to the light?
Not really by command, more in conversation. All of a sudden the light will jump for no reason. Again, we can't sit there and say a ghost is sitting on it, but you know, it has happened, so we know it works. But exactly what causes that to happen, we're not sure.
We're in room 24. Let's see what time it is. It's roughly about 7:30 at night, and we're going to see if we can try to contact somebody. Is there anybody here with us? So we get a lot of stories of doors closing, knocking on the door. There's somebody here with us. Can you attempt to try to do any of these?
So this was the office of Thomas Minot. And on April 19th, you brought some soldiers back here. And they died in this room. Are those soldiers still here with us? If the soldiers are still here with us, can you see that green light in the middle of the room? Can you go near it? Are there children nearby? Are the children that people hear the ones that were in those closets?
Next, Brian and Sean want to conduct white noise experiments. White noise is a type of sound that is produced by combining noises of all different frequencies together. Well, that and White Noise is also a stupid Michael Keaton movie from 2005, but I forgive him because he was Batman.
I'm Batman.
By introducing white noise to an area in which you are looking for EVPs, it will enhance the paranormal sounds you may pick up. It also, in theory, attracts spirits. Okay, so they've isolated me in a room, room 22, to close my eyes and do the white noise experiment. So, here we go. Room 22 is supposedly the most haunted or active room at the Colonial Inn. Being left alone on the floor and in the room in the pitch black should be a scary experience and slightly intimidating, especially if you have been told that ghosts are here. Honestly, I couldn't have been more comfortable. In fact, after my 10 minutes alone, the crew told me that they thought I had fallen asleep. At one point, I did hear some faint creaking noises that was not audible on my camera, but was to my ears. But let's keep in mind, the Colonial Inn was erected in 1716. The place has every non-ghostly reason to creak. My 10 minutes up?
Yep.
Alright.
Did good, did move.
What was in the bathroom?
Nothing. That's when I heard it, so I opened my eyes and I looked in there. You know, just because I wasn't, wow.
Could have been vibration from us walking up the stairs.
Yeah. No, but I really didn't. I felt pretty comfortable.
They thought you were sleeping.
I wasn't sleeping.
Let me check on the other side. I want to see if that's a room.
White noise. Being the kind of person I am, I didn't want to hoard all the white noise fun of being left alone in a dark, supposedly haunted room all by myself. So this is Mike Lawton, good friend of mine. He's been working with us for a very long time, and he's going to try the white noise experiment now, and Sean's going to show him, tell him exactly what to do and how to act.
So you're going to put your headphones on there, and once you're ready, you're going to hit that white box. I want you to be in a complete relaxed state. If you want to put your feet up, go ahead, put your feet up. We're only going to do this for 10 minutes. Just keep your eyes closed. If you hear anything, don't necessarily react to it in a sense of taking the headphones off. Just try to go with it. If you feel like there's something around you or something near you, go ahead and open your eyes and look at it, see if you can see anything there. But you want to try to be as relaxed as possible and try to feel. So we want to try to take away your sight, take away your hearing. So we want to use your sixth sense.
Mike's experience was similar to mine. Once he got over being left in a supposedly haunted room all alone in the dark, he got comfortable. All right, Mike, so what was your experience like?
I had a nice nap. No, actually, it was really quiet. A couple times I heard a couple distant noises, so I'm guessing that they were probably either downstairs or down the hall, but nothing really left me with any kind of creepy feeling or anything like that.
And you didn't formulate any words or anything from the white noise?
Nothing like that. No.
All right.
No.
So you're dead inside like me.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
all right, good. Despite the fact that no ghosts wanted to come out and play with me or Mike, Brian let me lead an EVP investigation in room 22. Brian, what are we supposed to ask in an EVP session exactly?
Well, it's really up to you. I mean, whatever comes to mind. There's no right or wrong way. As a courtesy, I mean, if we do find a ghost, we're not going to, berate the ghost or put the ghost down. That's just what we do. Okay. Some groups do it, and, that's more power to them. But so you can pretty much ask whatever you want to ask.
Okay.
If you're with us, we just ask you to be respectful.
Right. Then wait 15 seconds for a response.
Yep.
Okay.
And that should typically the rule of thumb is to give it that 15 seconds in between.
All right, so should I start?
Yeah, go ahead. You can lead the way.
All right. Is there anyone in this room with us tonight? Were you making a tapping noise when I was in here before? Can you tap again for us now? We hear you like to push people in this room. Can you push me or Brian? Why are you here? Are you trapped here? Well, just like when I was in here before, Brian, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything now. I don't know about you.
No. I mean, it is an eerie room, but at the same time, it's because the other room we're in has so many more windows in it. Yeah. So it's going to make it seem bigger. But, I mean, there's a general creepiness in here, but wouldn't say that it's haunted. But then again, we don't know again. We're not going to hear the voice recorder until tomorrow.
Right.
So it's possible.
We've seen the knocking famously on TV shows where you say, "Can you knock like this?" Do you guys ever try that? Can you tell I want to try it?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to bang, you can bang away. It's
all right. Can you knock like this if you're here with us? I'm going to try it again. Now you. Brian and Sean would later listen to the audio to see if I did get any responses to my questions. Spoiler alert, they did. Can you knock like this if you're here with us? But for now, we are parting ways. NEGH will continue on in their daily lives while my crew and I find more paranormal teams. We've seen Ghost Hunters. We've seen Ghost Hunters International. We've seen the training. Now, are you hoping that they start up a kid ghost hunting crew?
Yes.
Yeah? How cool would that be?
Very.
Any place you'd like to go in particular?
Is this working? Oh. No, I just want to go to all the places.
Now, you must be very brave because when I was your size, I was scared. I didn't want to know about ghosts. They don't scare you?
No?
You want to tell them why they don't scare you?
Well, mostly because they never really talk to me and they're not really mean.
Matt,
They mostly just mind their own business.
Welcome to the annual Paracon in Warwick, Rhode Island. If you can't get enough of ghosts and demons, then this is the place for you. There were plenty of booths set up with paranormal investigation teams from all over New England. They are here to talk shop and share evidence and stories. And some, despite this convention taking place in the basement of a church, are very adamant when it comes to their beliefs.
I find religion to be a con job. It's to control the masses. There is wisdom in it, but I don't think God is necessary at all for anything.
Now, but do you believe that paranormal could be a con job?
It could be. It could be. You know, I can't say no. I even, people's like, well, do you believe in spirits? And, that you die and you continue on. Yes, but do I'm 100% convinced? No, I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not.
Mediums have become a big draw in the paranormal world, too. Not just the kind that talk to dead people, but the kind that talk to dead animals.
Because animals are also beings as well, they can communicate. It's not like they're all of a sudden going to have a voice and say, hey, tell so-and-so that I said this. It's usually a sense like, all right, did they have a red ball that they liked a lot? And where is it? He's showing me that it's on the left-hand side of the bed right now. Why is it on the left? Because it should be on the right. That type of stuff.
But what's your response to, because there are going to be people who heard you just say that and they're going to go, she's crazy.
I am crazy.
Okay.
I am crazy. I talk to dead people. That's what I do.
Tiffany Rice is a medium. I found her to be very honest and open with the good and bad side of her trade. We decided to meet up with her again, and this time we did so in Wareham, Massachusetts, at the location of her local access TV show.
3, 2.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for another fun-filled night here on the set of Spirit Connections every Tuesday night at 8 p.m.
Although it may seem that spirit mediums are a newer player in the paranormal game, they actually date back to the 1800s. During times of war, people were looking for signs of hope that their loved ones who were off fighting wars were okay. With a lack of communication in a still young world, technologically speaking, it could be months or years before they would get any news as to how they were doing, or in most cases, how and when they perished. Now, stop me if you've heard this one. Hollywood glorifies things, so I immediately think of The Sixth Sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see dead people like that? Do they come up and...
Some mediums do. Some mediums absolutely do. We're all made differently. But for myself, it's more of a mind's eye. So say if I said, okay, Dan, what did you wear yesterday? So right now you probably have a memory of what you wore, right?
Yeah.
So that picture in your head, that's how I see it.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, so I do my best to describe it. Sometimes I can hear it, and it's just like, say, it sounds like as if you're singing, you're thinking of maybe a song that you like, and you can hear the song in your head. So that's how it comes to me. It's all in my head.
Okay.
Sounds kind of funny, but
Yeah.
but it's true. But if you just allow yourself to go with your first thought, your first gut feeling, that's how you're going to get your information. You have to kind of take logic and throw it out the door.
Tiffany says that she's known since childhood that she had a sixth sense. Once she turned 21 and her father passed away, she had what she calls an awakening. Tiffany doesn't actually see spirits and talk to them, as you would see in movies and TV shows. She sees what she calls the memories of the spirit and sometimes the person she is reading. Do you believe that there's a heaven? Because I can't imagine once you go up there, there's a turnstile that's letting you come back down to visit. I mean, what's that? What's your take on all that?
I personally, notice I say I personally a lot because I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to anybody, because that's the last thing I want to do, because everybody's individual. I personally believe that there is a heaven. But what I do feel is that, to keep it generalized, I believe after we leave, we're just a vehicle. This is just our vehicle. And after we lose our physical form, we go off into another dimension. Do they make visits? Yes. Do I think that they're trapped in some form? No, I don't. I don't feel like just because they're coming in to say hi, I don't feel like that they're trapped or they're looking for help in any way. I know that in the paranormal aspect, a lot of times groups come into contact with people looking for help and they could just be considered earthbound spirits. But what I typically deal with are people that have passed, and any anger, disease, anything. I consider this Vegas. What happens here stays here. So anything that would be negative is hogwash, if that's a right word, if that's even a word. But is hogwash here, and where they are. Again, I've never come in contact with anything that was just angry and miserable.
So, is there a hell, in your opinion, then? Are there demons out there?
Possibly. Again, it's a touchy subject because it depends on where you get your information. The Bible, of course, and now in the work that I do, I've met a couple of demonologists, and so it's very interesting to hear everybody else's take. So,
do you consider yourself a religious person?
I was raised a Christian.
Yeah. Okay.
I was raised a Christian, yeah, and I should go to church a little bit more often.
Hey, who shouldn't?
But I'll just say for the record, I have a spiritual side to me. I'm more of a spiritual person than, because I deal with this every day of my life.
Now, you mentioned earthbound spirits. What's the difference there?
Good question.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the earthbound spirits, I feel sometimes people say that they, like I said, trapped or stuck, or just kind of might not have had, how do I want to word this? They might not have been able to finish what they had started here, or they might not know exactly where they are yet. And in that case, sometimes people will call on people like myself to help them, just redirect them into going into where they should go, which is, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say hell or anything, but I feel funny saying into the light, but you know, going where they should be going.
Okay. How do you feel about ghost paranormal videos that you see where something's thrown or moved? Do you buy into that, knowing what you know confidently about how this stuff works? Do you think there are entities out there opening doors?
Absolutely.
Really?
I really do. I really do.
Have you ever experienced that yourself?
I've had, because I love the paranormal too.
When we were at the Paracon, we talked to you. You told me that everyone can be sensitive like this. How?
How?
Yeah.
We're all born with it. What happens is as we get older, we create self-doubt. So self-doubt is something, say this is one of my big examples, like growing up, your parents said, Dan, did you make the bed? And even though you know you made the bed, you would go and double check just to appease them. So what's actually happening is that you're creating self-doubt. Do you see what I mean? Like, double check your homework. Even though you know you did it right, you're going to double check it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say your parents instill this in you. It has nothing to do with them in that sense. But I'm just saying those are just little things from when you're younger. You learn to doubt yourself. And you learn to steer away from that gut feeling. Like I had said before, if you just trust your gut and go with it, your intuition is as easy as, say, if you're driving along down a street, someplace where you may have been before, maybe not too often, and you're thinking, you know what, I think I need to take that right. You take the right and you end up in your destination. That's using your intuition. So when you start to hone in on it, you have to kind of refocus and really start just going with that gut. And it's so hard, I'll tell you that, because when I really started to practice this, it was so hard just to go with the first thoughts, because sometimes they don't make sense at that time.
When you're doing a reading with someone, is it harder if the person is just not buying into it 100%? Is it harder to get a read?
Some people are just blocked. Some people, I think, they walk into getting a reading, because I do the private readings and the family readings, also gallery readings. They walk into it thinking, if they say my nickname, that'll make me a believer. Well, we just get messages that we need to hear, not necessarily who we want to hear. What you have to remember is that we're on the receiving end of the telephone. So when we pick up, it's whoever. So it could be Uncle Frank, who you couldn't stand, but he might just come through just because he can. Okay? So that's why I think having that certain expectation, it's a lot easier if you don't have any just because you don't want to be let down if by chance that nickname isn't brought up. You know, again, they're going to think about, I've done it too. I remember asking my dad once, like, well, what's going to happen in my love life? One of my girlfriends said, Tiff, all right, so would you ever talk to your dad about relationships? And I said, no. And she goes, well, why are you asking him now? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't want to hear about relationship status with my dad. Like, I don't want him to tell me anything.
It's funny to meet groups of people that believe so much in something like ghosts, but when you start talking to them about mediums, they thumb their noses at them. How does that make any sense? Well, it doesn't to all paranormal investigators.
We don't do it consciously. And I've talked to Tiff about this. We don't do it consciously because we don't believe, or we're not trying to promote this idea that we're all psychic, and I'm not gonna, or that we all have this connection. As an investigator, you've got to balance it, but you also can't shut yourself off to it, and you have to recognize that it's going to manifest through your feelings, through your sensations, and that we actually, as investigators, do have psychical moments. We just describe them in different ways.
Like they used to say in the Old West, you can never have too many mediums, right? Anyway, we met with another one. Along with being a medium, Heather Crocodile is a Reiki master, which is a spiritual practice where a practitioner lays their hands on you to help heal you. You have to wonder about how legitimate mediums are. I mean that sincerely. Police who are investigating cold cases contact Heather. If the police are buying this, shouldn't we all?
Because this is police stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just normal everyday person that's not supposed to know stuff. You know what I mean? So there are times that I actually sit down with a detective and I give them what I get, but they also have to be careful because there are things that even a psychic isn't supposed to know. Mm-hmm. So the older murders are very hard. I mean, we're talking about something that happened 40 years ago, so will those ever be solved? Maybe, maybe not. The logical side of me says, good luck, but have I helped? I have helped with solving other murders. I've helped find bodies.
Now, let me ask you this, because again, let's go into Hollywood and all of its evilness.
Yes.
Are you feeling the knife plunging into your chest the way Hollywood perceives people like yourself to be? Or is it just you feel like a pressure? Explain that.
Exactly.
How do you feel it?
I mean, I've seen the shows where all of a sudden someone's doing this and they have blood coming out of their hands, or they're like, oh,
yeah.
doing all... No. No. It's more... The only way I can explain it is when you have a wipeout and you remember what it felt like.
Okay.
All right, oh man, that, I took you down in karate. Yeah, that hurt.
Yeah.
Something like that. But you didn't remembering, you don't have that physical pain again, but you knew what it felt like.
If these feelings or powers are real, how can a person live with them? If it's something that's in you, it's like a special ability,
yeah.
How do you block it?
You just, honestly, I don't pay attention to it all the time. It's always there. My husband can walk in the house and I'll be like, what the heck happened to that airplane today? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or and it's funny, I can feel, without thinking about it, I know when he's about 2 minutes out from the house and I can get his dinner right on the table. So as soon as he's pulling up, it's right there. It's a natural thing. I just don't sit around and pay attention and tune into it all day, every day. Okay.
Is it taxing if you do? I mean,
it's extremely draining.
Yeah.
It's not, so many people are like, oh, I wish I could do what you do. There's a lot of responsibility. It is not all fun and games.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't change it. I help a lot of people literally all over the world with this.
Yeah.
I love it, but it's extremely draining. It's, I feel your emotion, I feel the dead people's emotion. I have my own emotion.
You're sitting there talking to someone and then suddenly just normally you see a dead person walk in the door and you're like, oh, there's Uncle Rick.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but it's not always, I don't just go around seeing people.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes, whatever works for them is going to work for me. Like I said, I feel the way other people felt. So that's a strength for me. So a lot of times it's a presence. or I can feel what went on with this person. All right, like their ailments. If they had lung cancer, working with the police, I get shot and strangled and murdered all the time. But it's more the feeling. Okay, sometimes I just hear them. But it's not just like, I'm walking around every day being like, oh yeah, there's Dan, and then there's 5 other people next to him.
Yeah.
It's not, it's so hard to explain. You're not necessarily seeing it with your eyes all the time.
Okay.
All right? It's more, a lot of times when I'm doing this, most of the time, you'll notice, even when it's just a natural thing now. I'm not even looking at you when I'm talking because I'm tuning in.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Which means you're closing your mind off. You're closing your whole brain off. You're relaxed. You're quiet. You're not thinking about what you're doing for dinner or if you want to go jump in a pool somewhere. You're relaxed. You're totally quiet. There's nothing in your head. Then somebody else that wants to say something, you can hear what they're saying.
Well, Heather, here's the $1 million question.
The lottery.
If Abe Lincoln walks through that door, where the hell did he come from? Where's he been? Where's he hanging out?
Yeah. You're going to laugh at me, and you don't have to use this part, but Ben Franklin and I are really close.
Really? Okay.
So we'll use him. He helped me believe in dinosaurs because I can't believe in dinosaurs.
Really?
I can talk to Ben Franklin about this, and he helps me believe. And yeah, there are so many. I am not a religious person. Okay.
Okay.
Spiritual, yes.
Yeah.
Religious, I'm just not. Okay. So that is a hugely loaded question. Okay.
Well, do you ever ask Ben Franklin?
Where he's been?
In between, in between asking about the dinosaurs, are you like, dude, where are you coming from?
You know what? So many people have asked me that, and the only way I can put it is, for people to understand, is heaven. Because everybody knows that word. Okay? And it's just, they're the same people, they're the same personality, they're just not in a physical body. They're just on a different plane, a different level.
So like God's giving out hall passes to come back down here and visit family?
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is me, this is what I do. If you don't believe, I have no problem with that. I'm not going to sit here and try to prove myself either.
Right.
It's just, I have to prove myself to dead people sometimes too. Even the people that come through, they don't always believe in this.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, so you're saying they don't know they're dead?
I've had people who didn't know that they were dead. Mostly victims. Of like when I'm doing, the police stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I'm talking about the people who don't believe in me.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, you know what, man? I know you're here. You know that I know that you're here.
Yeah.
We're chatting.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I will get them to open up too. But they don't always. I've had elderly Catholic women coming in, throwing holy water at me, putting rosary beads on me.
Yeah.
I had a Spanish woman wearing garlic. I'm like, I'm not a vampire.
Being believed can't be much of a concern for Heather. Because let's face it, this is a woman who can be woken up in the middle of the night by a deceased person looking to communicate. Now, you mentioned that you'll be laying in bed and you hear, the walking coming up to you, and you feel a tap and you open your eyes expecting to see one of your kids there.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's a dead person. So how does that go? Do you go back to bed like you would your kids, or what? I mean, do you go, hey, what do you want?
Well,
and,
you know what?
And they talk?
There was a time I would be up for hours in the middle of the night because it was a high for me as much as it's a high for the people who come to see me sometimes. So many people, they get into it, they want more, it's an adrenaline rush, this is so cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got caught in that too. And I would be up in the middle of the night talking to not hundreds, but whoever was in my house.
Yeah.
Until my husband said, you're spending more time with the dead than you are the living.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? No, I'm not. He's like, yeah, you are. I'm like, yeah, I am.
Have you ever had anyone say, well, are you schizophrenic because you're talking to voices in your head?
I said it myself. I am not kidding you. I have had that conversation with my mother.
Yeah.
And being like, That, and you know what? I make fun of myself about that too. And when I sit down with somebody and I have my whole spiel of what I say, one of the things I say is, I have to believe in what I do because I'm in a whole lot of trouble if these voices are not real. And I have checked in with myself to make sure that, and I had years, honestly, I had years of intense therapy first, okay? So she told me I wasn't nuts, okay?
Things said by Heather or Tiffany may seem crazy. Ben Franklin, I know. But they both decided to read me after their interview sessions. There were many misses. However, they both did come up with the spirit of a young man I knew who had passed. They nailed his personality to a T, and also talked about how he died. They could have done a search on me through the internet and try and find a connection, but this young man did not live or die where I am from, and we did not share the same last name. So how coincidental can it be that they both came up with him and be able to describe his fate and strong personality? After putting my brain through a tough workout trying to understand what mediums are all about...
Wait, ow, that hurt.
We met up a second time with the New England Ghost Hunters. This time we were at Fort Wetherill in Rhode Island, a former coast artillery base that was used as a military training facility for German prisoners of war in 1940. These prisoners were being trained to become police officers with the intention of having them go back to their homeland once Germany was sacked at the end of World War II. This abandoned base, which is now Fort Wetherill State Park, resembles little of what comes to mind when I hear the word state park, but nevertheless, here it stands. Brian, Sean, and their crew thought it would be a good idea to check it out and see if they could find anything. My crew stuck cameras into dark, empty rooms searching for what, I don't know. Did you hear something there? We did. Listen again. I know what I think I heard, and so does my crew. But one of the hang-ups on EVPs is that once someone tells you what they think they hear, it's in your head and you can't make anything else out. Or if it's anything at all. We will let you know what we think that voice or noise was in a little while when NEGH does their big reveal with us for here and the Colonial Inn. But for now, the search for spirits goes on at Fort Wetherill. Were you stationed here?
What happened to all this wood in here?
Did you die here? We can't hear you, so can you make a noise so that we know you're with us?
If you want us to talk to you, you're gonna have to bang on some wood or do something so we know that you're here. Otherwise, we're gonna move on.
In the interest of trying to be honest, not insulting, even though it may seem that way, how can we truly take a fair look at the existence of ghosts and those who hunt them and those who have claimed to see them without getting the professional opinion of a psychiatrist? Yep, I'm going there. How can I not? Dr. Philip Candelas is the attending psychiatrist at Marlborough Hospital and an associate professor of psychiatry at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. We've already established that ghost hunts don't have to be done at night, but that doesn't stop investigators from doing it then, and it doesn't stop people from having paranormal experiences at night. So we turn to Dr. Candelas to get his professional opinion on the power of suggestion.
If you enter a setting where you're primed for something, a way of thinking takes over that we recognize in the cognitive and psychological sciences. It's called a confirmation bias. So in science, we have to be very protective that we don't simply confirm what we already think we know. But when you're just walking into something that seems very interesting and exciting, you're more likely to make a decision based on what you already believe than challenge it. So you might get a vague or ambiguous stimulus of some kind, and then interpret it in a way that confirms what you already believe.
Think about it. You're walking around in the dark just waiting for something to happen. If you aren't in control of your emotions, every noise can immediately have you thinking ghost, and so can everything you see.
There's another psychological phenomenon where we try to frame things in terms of what we already understand. It's similar to the confirmation bias, but it's an attempt to put meaning where there might be very little or none. So I come from a generation where we were trying to find meaning in music lyrics being played backwards. So we try to put or hear something where there's very little or nothing.
Almost everyone has a ghost story about waking in the middle of the night to find an apparition standing at the foot of their bed. That can have more to do with your body's and brain's process of waking than it does for seeing ghosts.
There seems to be a real phenomena as we wake and as we fall asleep where the mind is letting go and doesn't have the same kind of analytic thinking going on that goes on in waking moments. So it's frequent to hear people say that they might see something or hear something as they fall asleep or as they awaken. So it does seem to be related to arousal and what the brain goes through. And this may give us a clue that when we're under certain stress or distraction, we may be more amenable to seeing certain things or being open to more paranormal phenomena.
It's right when it goes over.
That's the beginning of the video.
Yeah. So, yeah, it just hit.
Brian Simmons and Sean Viveros were back to give us their big reveal as it's known in ghost hunters terminology. Before we talked about Fort Wetherill, we went over some evidence at the Colonial Inn. I was expecting to hear that they could conclusively tell me that they found nothing. However, it turns out I may have received an answer during the EVP session in room 22. The first thing they had for me was the sound of what could be footsteps in another room, as one of their investigators was conducting a white noise investigation.
If you're here with me, can you shut the bathroom door?
It's hard to say. I mean, the building's 300 years old. There was people there. It's not like we had the building to ourselves, so it could be anything from a ghost to somebody alive.
Then the next piece of audio you have is from the room across the hall,
Yep.
which you guys locked me in
Yes.
for 10 minutes all by
Yep.
myself. But this was when we went in to do the EVP under your instruction.
And you did good.
Oh, well, thank
did
you very
good.
much. Appreciate it.
Can you knock like this if you're here with us?
That almost sounds
Try
like
again.
it almost sounds like it was played back from a recorder because it just I thought I heard something there when we were in that room when I did that knock, and I thought it was one of our camera guys just shifting his weight from one foot to the other and creaking the floor, but that doesn't sound like a floor creaking to me.
No. It could be, in theory, a floor creaking, but the thing that catches is it's the exact, distance in between the knocks.
Right.
So it mirrors it.
That's
which is
interesting.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can also rule out reverberation due to the fact that it's actually several seconds after your knock as well. It does seem very odd that it's the exact pattern that you did.
Yeah.
It actually happened twice.
Right.
I wish you would have been a little bit more creative in your knocking pattern to really mix it up so we knew for sure, but it's your first time, so...
So I get a pass.
Yeah, absolutely. But next time you're going to have to try to mix it up a little bit. Maybe you could practice, I don't know.
Okay. Practice in a dark room all by myself?
Yep, if you could.
Okay. So what was your take on the Concord Inn overall?
It's tough to say. I mean, I don't think it's right for us to make a determination from our one trip there, whether it's haunted or not, or if there's anything there or not. We know that with the stories in the back of our head, it's definitely an interesting place. I mean,
That was all for the Colonial Inn, so we moved on to talking about Fort Wetherill. The New England ghost hunters didn't find anything, but we had one potential EVP that you got to hear earlier. So this was when, I don't know which one of us was on the camera at this time, but we were getting one of these rooms. And I'll let you guys just play it and see if you hear where and what we heard.
Sure.
That's at the 3.5 second mark. I know what we think we heard,
Yeah,
but I'd like to
yeah.
know what you guys think.
You can definitely hear it.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a whispered voice.
Like Get Out, maybe.
Yeah.
That's what we heard. But we also wondered, as we were listening to it over and over and over again, so we didn't look like idiots in front of you guys. As we all know, there was a lot of rubble there, a lot of crap, and we didn't know if maybe it was someone's foot dragging over some of that rubble. And of course, you have a great echo in there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it could be, but there's a lot of people there. You figure your qualification to be a German POW, basically a Nazi POW, to go there would just be good.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that were there that had a lot of resentment against the country that they were in.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to assume that they probably weren't treated the way we would now. But yeah, people would have died there. So, of course, if they're saying get out, then they're probably not German.
If you speak anything but English and you die, you don't magically all of a sudden speak English.
Yeah, I don't think it works like that.
That's the theory.
I mean, could it? I mean, if you go by what you hear about when someone passes on, and if they're stuck in a certain area, if you're some American military person that for some reason is connected there, and you're an angry person because you had Germans around you every day, you were trying to train, or you just didn't
That's
like
true.
being there. Maybe you
know?
just had this.
Maybe
you
the
had
guy
this
trained
attitude.
and his brother got killed in Germany.
Yeah.
You don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, anything's possible, and I think as technology advances, we're just going to have a lot more stuff to debunk, because we didn't hear it there, but then again, when you go out, you can see everyone's outside. Somebody could have said it out there, the echo could have went and got caught.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like one of those things that one of these TV shows that we've talked about, they just jump all over that.
Yeah.
And they put the idea in your head that it says get out, and all of a sudden everybody hears get out. We know now from following you guys around how much time and effort goes into this. And you come back with hours and hours of footage and there's nothing there. Yet when you go to a Concord Inn and you get two little things that could be paranormal, and then we're at the military fort there and we have one thing that could potentially be something. Does it change your minds at all? Because I know you guys aren't big believers like me. You're just kind of, well, I don't know about this.
You got to look at it as, in Concord, we spent the night at Henry David Thoreau's house. Yeah, we were looking for something, but it's not going to be obvious, I don't think, if it is there. So we got to spend time in a place of very significant U.S. history. Same thing at Fort Wetherill. Nothing happened, but we got to go to a place that the British controlled. The Hessians, which came with the Britons, they controlled it at one point. So we might not have found a ghost, but we still got to take a piece of history and learn about it, like witness pieces of it. So that's how I always look at it. So you always take away something from where you go. You notice that with us, you don't go to a new condo that was just built down the street. It's not really what we look for. Other groups do. Other groups look to be more in helping the people. We look more on the history end of it.
Rise Up Paranormal is another group that we met through the Paracon, and then again through our interview with Tiffany. Luckily for us, they are just as professional and realistic as the New England ghost hunters. Ken and Dave DeCosta are the co-founders, and they allowed us to go along on an investigation at the historic Payne House in Coventry, Rhode Island. The reported activity here has been footsteps, shadows, and voices. When you are in any place, whether it's a museum like the Payne House or a residence, you really have to trust your senses more than your equipment, and that goes double for your eyes.
How do you determine when you're sitting in the dark like this what you think is a shadow person or just your eyes adjusting?
Judgment. You trust yourself. You trust yourself. You trust your own judgment.
Dr. Philip Candelas has already given us his professional opinion, so we thought we would further cover the basis of reality by talking to an optometrist about optical illusions and what tricks your eyes can play on you, especially in the dark. Dr. John Abendanza is a well-respected optometrist that has done some breakthrough work with vision therapy, which helps children and adults with functional visual problems. Dr. John, as he is known affectionately by his patients, said that seeing in the light of day versus the night is, well, night and day.
In the dark, your vision changes. We have two visual systems. We have a daytime visual system and we have a nighttime visual system. And the quality and the nature of that vision changes when you go from daytime to nighttime. For example, when the light level gets low and in the dark, you don't see colors. So our color vision needs a certain amount of light level just to operate. If the light's too low, you don't see colors. So the perception of color changes dramatically as the light levels drop, which is why you may have noticed that flowers don't look the same color that they do in the middle of the day as they do at dawn or dusk. In addition, we lose some of that clarity of vision, some of that central vision. So we lose details but can make out more general features easily.
Dr. John also reminded me that the eye doesn't actually see, the brain does. The eye is just the conduit for the brain to make out shapes and sizes. That means that the brain uses its database of knowledge to identify what signals it has received from the eye.
If something is very difficult to see, if the lighting conditions are a little awkward or more difficult, it can be difficult to make sense of what it is that you're looking at and trying to understand.
Optical illusions are experiences we have when we look at something that the brain could interpret one way or another. That is the experience that you can have during the day or, for our purposes, at night on a ghost hunt.
There's something in the image that allows us to see things that aren't really there. So sometimes you could think of an optical illusion as our vision playing tricks on us.
Those tricks are something that can easily happen while on a ghost hunt. Another role that can go into questioning what you or someone else has actually seen is adrenaline. That can mess with your eyes too.
Adrenaline serves to heighten arousal. This occurs in the brain as well as in the body as a whole. So you're more sensitive to things in your environment. You see things that you might not see.
My crew and I were hoping that we wouldn't get bogged down with visual issues when we arrived at the Payne House with Rise Up Paranormal. Once again, we picked a good crew with a good attitude. Just like any GH, Rise Up doesn't go in looking to prove the existence or non-existence of spirits.
So I think if you're getting something every place you go, you're probably doing it wrong. Because these things, I think, should be rare. The way our perspective in this is when we go into a location, we don't go in as skeptics or believers, because I think that your results can be influenced and have a bias either way. We'd prefer to come in as unbiased observers, because most of the people that have these experiences, they're not ghost hunting. You know, they're doing the laundry, they're watching TV, they're having dinner, they're going about their everyday lives, and suddenly they have a special event happen. So as best we can, we try to put ourselves in that situation. And we try to monitor the environment and see if there's changes, if there's any correlation. But I don't want to be a hardened skeptic where I'm looking for a legitimate reason for everything. That being said, we try to eliminate the rational things. So yeah, I mean, there is a bit of debunking to try to get to the root of what's going on, because a lot of times when people are in a heightened state of anxiety, they tend to assign a paranormal value to the most mundane things.
Once all the equipment is set up, Ken tells us that on this investigation, the routine will be a little different. Rise Up has brought along a medium, our friend Tiffany Rice. Small world.
Normally when we bring in a spirit medium like Tiffany, what we will do is allow her to go in first, get her impressions of the place, do a walkthrough, we'll note it, we'll document it, and then when we start the investigation, if she gets an impression at a certain location, we may want to emphasize that particular part.
Rise Up has set up all their IR cameras and motion sensors. They get their group together with all their digital recorders and are ready to start. The idea for the walkthrough with Tiffany is that she has no idea the history of the Payne house or what potential evidence Ken's group has found here.
Okay, we're at the Payne house. This is Ken. I am here with Tiffany, David, Julie, Marlena, and it is April 18th, 2013. We're about to commence the walkthrough with Tiffany.
All right. Okay, I'm feeling like I'm being pulled into that room. And I feel like it's a female energy. Nope, it's not this one. It's not this one. Hold on. Do you know if this room was connected at one point?
There's a pantry here.
Okay, but do you know if there it was
I don't
all
know.
you don't know? Okay.
You can get in there from here.
I said sure.
Okay, I'm hearing the name Mabel. It's a Mabel. I'm not sure if she was hired help, but that's how I'm feeling. I don't feel like she lived here in the sense of owning the house. I feel like she was more of a hired help. Okay. And there's also a lot of little children running around her as well.
How old is this woman, Tiff?
I see the numbers 22. Okay. So I'm not sure if she's 22 or if it's a year in time, 1822. But when you asked, that's what she showed me.
Excuse me.
And lots of children, you said.
Yep. They don't belong to her, though.
Hmm.
Okay? So that's why I feel like she's either hired to maintain the house as far as doing, looking after the children. And also, I hear the name Josephina. Okay.
Now, how do you see that room, though, as it is, as a pantry?
I saw the room, actually, I thought that when I went into that room before, I figured it was connected because I saw that room to be much bigger. I didn't see them separated like this.
Yeah, okay.
So it was, and as I'm saying that, I'm hearing four rooms, so I don't know if this house was originally 4 rooms, and then it was added on. But I'm hearing 4 rooms.
All right.
Okay.
The pantry above is like this, and there's a door. So I don't know if maybe this was the same way.
Okay. Yeah, because I just feel like it's
At whatever
Too
time
close.
that it was redone, everything was redone, because I'm looking at molding on doors and things like that. It all matches, which doesn't mean that it wasn't, but if it was reconfigured, it was all pretty much done at the same time.
right. Right. I just feel like there's an addition. Whether
So-
it's a divider or not.
Okay, so.
But I feel, sorry, go ahead.
Kind of like, okay, the first one, Mabel, so it's kind of like what they might call a governess back then.
Oh, is it?
In other words, do you see the children attached to this house, or are they kind of transient? Or they're visiting, or
Well, I know that they're not attached to her in the sense of I don't feel
they're
like
not
they're her
hers,
children.
they're not her children, right?
But she's looking after them.
Okay.
Okay. Was there a schoolhouse back there? In the
I don't know,
backyard?
was there?
I'm just seeing a lot of children in the back, like in the backyard area.
I'm playing that I'm not going to give you anything game here.
Okay.
You know?
I just,
Yep.
sometimes I'm slow.
That's
with
okay.
certain information.
It'll become apparent one way or the other.
Okay. Also seeing the number 7. I don't know if there were 7 births in this house. But I'm hearing there's 7 of them. So I would interpret that to be births, but it very well could be maybe members of the family as well, because I usually get 7 siblings or 7 in total. But my first thought was 7 births.
How do you see Annabelle, child or adult?
I'd say between 15 to 21. She has a round face, rosy cheeks. But she also works here too. And actually, as I said that, she said, no, I don't. So,
Knock on in. Someone walking.
I just feel like maybe she might be the oldest daughter, that type of role.
Now, Tiff, the names that come up, whether it's Annabelle, Mabel, or the other one was Josephine?
Josephina?
Josephine. Do you think these are like interactive? Or
They very well could be I mean, they're interacting with me.
yeah, or are they just, their energy still here, or are they someone that you could possibly connect with?
Sure.
Good.
You can try to do an EVP session too.
Very good. Those are names, I just say because those are names we might want to incorporate into what we're doing now.
Well, I think that would be great because that way, because even though you guys work with devices and I work
Sure.
intuitively, we're still trying to communicate and trying to, I connect with them on an emotional level where you guys can connect with them on a more factual level. But hopefully the emotional level can offer the validation from
hopefully.
factual, yeah.
Hopefully.
As we keep moving through the house, Tiffany finds a room that she had felt would be there, the schoolroom.
In terms of the schoolroom, Tiff, what do you see in terms of ages in there?
Between 5 and 7.
For an age?
Yep. Because I see younger ones, and then I see maybe even up to 9.
I'll tell you a little something about the schoolroom right here. At one point, it was the only one in the town of Coventry. This was pretty much it. This was Coventry Elementary, Coventry Middle, and Coventry High School. You know, as far as those things go, in terms of like how old, I don't think you'd see a lot of kids 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, I'm seeing all young kids.
Right. You wouldn't see them at that age. you know.
But there's only about 4 of them.
Right.
There's only 4 of them here.
Exactly. Exactly. It's where I had my one really, really profound experience right here in this hallway, Tiff. The first and only time I've ever seen a full apparition was coming right across here from right to left into the classroom. The only time I've ever seen anything like that. I just kind of stood there with my mouth open.
The walkthrough with Tiffany continues in the upstairs at the Payne House Museum. We went through several bedrooms as she continued to try to get the feel for where Rise Up should focus on their investigations that night. As we settled in one room, we had a scary moment that had nothing to do with ghosts.
Norma, you okay?
Yeah, I'll be okay.
You sure?
She's lightheaded.
Okay, you need to do...
downstairs too. There's pizza, there's food downstairs.
Yeah, food downstairs.
And do deep belly breaths. That's going to get them. Thank you.
Now, if I was one of those kind of producers, I would be trying to get you to believe that something paranormal happened to poor Norma. The truth of the matter is, Norma told us that she hadn't eaten since early that morning. It was roughly 10 p.m. at this point. Did I mention that it was really stuffy in the Payne house, too? There was another moment in another bedroom that was tough to figure out what we all heard. Ken, and most everyone, including myself, heard someone walking up a staircase around the corner.
Starting to paint for us.
Okay,
Paint
so...
fence, the house.
Okay.
Paint the
'cause
fence and some of the thresholds.
They're just acknowledging that as well. Okay.
Not got it.
There's someone over there. Okay.
Yeah, somebody's coming up now.
Okay. Someone coming up the stairs.
That's
I hope not, but... All right, give me a second. Hey fellas, did anybody come up? No, that's where it's barred off. No, these stairs are the ones that are barred off. You can't come up these stairs. Hey, nobody's on this floor with us. Hello, hey, is there anybody down on the first floor? Well, we can double check later, but the stairway over here, I'll show you what I mean. Now, ordinarily I'd say that, but it's barred off right there. So you can't come up these stairs. We'll double check with them downstairs, but I was pretty sure I was going to hear somebody come around the corner. Those are the stairs that have bar across it. You can't come up those stairs. There's nobody on the floor.
Yeah, that was pretty loud.
They're all down in the basement. I'm going to double check. You know, I'm not going to go out on that limb right now.
Ken would confirm later that the rest of his team was in the basement and not on the first floor. Next to the stairs was another staircase that leads up to the attic, but the team placed a motion sensor up there that was never triggered when the footsteps were heard.
There's someone over there. Okay.
Yeah, somebody's coming up now.
Okay. Someone coming up the stairs.
I hope not, but...
In all their investigations at the Payne house, Rise Up has had many EVPs and interactions with a little girl that they have named Sarah. With Tiffany on board, Ken wanted to take advantage of her being there by seeing if they could get a visual picture.
Long wavy hair. I see it's either a white or a light blue bow in her hair. Kind of like what would be a headband nowadays. So it'd be a ribbon, I would assume back then, because it's parted. And I feel like she's 9.
White colored hair, blonde?
Oh, blonde hair.
Blonde hair.
long blonde, like honey blonde hair.
How is she? How do you see her as what? 5, 8, 7?
9. She said 9 to me.
Active.
Very. It's funny because she just kind of thought I just saw someone over there, but there's a lot of little mannequins around here. Creepy. So, yeah, she's just going from one room to the next, into the next.
Now, $64,000 question. Does she have family here? I mean, is she? I mean, obviously on that plane, she's part of this house.
Yeah, she's part of the house.
Did she live here? Was she born here, or?
I don't feel like she was born here.
Like, what's the connection with Sarah to this house?
I don't feel like she was born here, but she did live here. Okay, I feel like she was taken in.
But her parents owned or did not own this house. It gives you nothing to say there's been a number of families here.
Right.
That have owned the house. Is she part of any of those families?
I'm not feeling biologically. I'm feeling like she refers to them as her family, meaning she was taken in, whether she was I just heard sister. So I had mentioned.
Mock audio.
I had mentioned before.
That was the window.
When I was in the room with all the dresses, I had said, I know Sarah Elizabeth is here because I know that there is a Sarah Elizabeth connected to this house. But I feel like she was one of the 2 little girls that were following me back and forth and saying, let's go in here, let's play. Okay.
The other one being Annabelle? I'm trying to remember what you said before.
No, because I felt Annabelle was connected, like she was biologically connected to this house. Okay. But I feel that Mabel was the hired help, and I feel that there was Sarah and then there was another little girl. So Annabelle was the one that I thought was between 15 to 21. That's how she just showed me like the real round face, and I just couldn't tell whether or not if she was older or younger.
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah Elizabeth, do you know we're talking about you? Do you remember us? We come back to see you every year, and I was wondering if you could come and play with us. Can you come and stand in the room with us and say hello? You've also talked to us before. Can you say something to us? Can you come in and say hello?
Can you touch one of us?
Do you want us to stay with you?
Just heard a second knock.
We're gonna have to go and just figure that out. It's either something or it's not something, so.
It was weird standing there getting a visual description of what Sarah Elizabeth looks like. It's weird because I found myself believing when everything else in me said this is bull. Ghosts don't exist. It was weird because if you are a religious person, how can you not believe in the paranormal? Your end game is that you go to a heaven or hell when you die. So everyone must believe in ghosts if you believe in an afterlife, right? Or are people just too self-absorbed to actually believe that there is a chance that once you die, that is it? You cease to be. You are no more. So if you don't like to hang your hat on religion, maybe you are buying into paranormal because it presents further arguments that you don't cease to exist after your body shuts down for good. On the night of our Payne House investigation, we talked more about this with Ken, Dave, and Tiffany.
You guys know a lot of other paranormal groups. You meet them at the Paracon. Would you say that paranormal investigators are religious people as far as church, Catholic, that kind of thing? Are they a religious group?
Keep it simple, Dave.
Keep it simple, Dave.
It's a loaded question.
Well, you're asking. It's a loaded question because, on one hand, I believe that with our modern paranormal movement here, whether you're looking at the academic side or the popular side, whether you're looking at the big TV movement, the mass media movement, or you're looking at the underground, mom and pop, local paranormal groups, the way I see it, and I come from a place where I'm a spiritual guy. I love to read religious texts. I love religious mythology because I think it's very valid. But I think that the time and place we live in demands a new mythology. And that's where we're going unconsciously. We don't realize we're doing it, but we're pushing forward with this new spiritual mythology that involves things that our society needs. Science, technology, validity. These are things that, 1,000 years ago, before Galileo and Copernicus, you didn't talk about these things. You didn't talk about spirituality in terms of the earth and science. It had to do with, God, man, and then the rest of it. The universe revolves around man, so to speak. The universe revolves around the earth, as opposed to you're part of something bigger, you're part of something universal. And I think that's getting long-winded, but that's where we're at. We're at a place where we're looking, and it's not that people aren't still Christian, Catholic, Islam, Muslim, Jewish. Those things are still pertinent, but I think that there is a modern movement towards just trying to form a new language, trying to form a new way to look at these things that does make immediate sense to the people who are living here and now, as opposed to over 2,000 years ago. That's an old story. We're looking to make a new one, and I think it's beautiful, but we also have to be careful because we can't get so over involved in the modern aspects, the science, the technology that's modern. We have to recognize what's usefully modern and what's universal.
It seems a lot of people get down on their religions. You have Catholic priests doing horrible things to little boys, and it kind of makes you think, well, geez, maybe there's something wrong with following this belief. And I think deep down inside, everyone has the same fear. When they die, they don't want to think that's it. And if they are losing faith in their religion, perhaps moving towards the idea that with paranormal investigation teams, they're getting evidence that there is something out there after death.
I think we've always asked that. That goes back to the beginnings of time, It's like, at the end, is there anything more? But I think sometimes you can be a prisoner of your religion too. And I think that, I don't think we're much different in this field. We're a microcosm of society. There are people who approach it scientifically. There are people that approach it emotionally. There are people who approach it spiritually. There are people who approach it fraudulently. Then we're no different. But the only thing is, I think that there is a lot of wish fulfillment in this field, and I think maybe some people that are a little disenfranchised turn to this for an answer because there's something missing. Maybe there's something missing in their lives a little bit. I'm not saying we're above that at all, but what I am saying is that a lot of times people want to believe so desperately that they kind of lose that objectivity a little bit, and it becomes wish fulfillment. Every noise, every picture, every photo becomes something paranormal because they want to believe so badly. And I think that maybe sometimes, I wouldn't say they're deluding themselves into it, but they're certainly talking themselves into it and maybe trying to talk other people into it as well. But in the end, I just think they just want to believe in something. You know, I'm not sure this is the field, you know, to prove that, you know, ghosts exist or not. But, no, again, we're no different. And we're a microcosm of, you know, society as a whole. You know, we're represented by a lot of different people with a lot of different points of view, and some good, some bad, some you agree, some you don't.
After the investigation, I met up with Ken at the Payne House again before their latest investigation. Interestingly enough, we both came to the meeting with potential EVPs. Ken played his for us first.
It's great having Norma here because
You can hear what sounds like a woman's voice saying, "Thank you."
it's great having Norma here because
At the time of the reveal, and even when Ken sent us the EVP for editing purposes, my whole crew and I were convinced that we heard a voice saying thank you. That is, until I started going over my footage from that night.
it's great having Norma here because, you know, at least hopefully you can clarify some of the facts for us or validate some of the information that's being provided.
After seeing my camera footage and Tiffany on it, it became clear that the thank you we heard was just Tiffany mumbling during a statement she was trying to articulate.
It's great having Norma here because
Nobody tried to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. This was a clear case of no matter how much proof you think you have, there can always be one missing piece that can debunk your case. Ken says that many EVPs are picked up when the investigators are simply having a conversation and not asking direct questions to any would-be spirits. Before my trip back to Coventry, Rhode Island, I had sent Ken the possible EVP that we found.
You know, and I think that's one of the toughest things more recently, probably within the past 10 years or so.
It sounded like a piece of furniture that had been accidentally bumped and scraped across the wooden floor. Ken cleaned it up with an audio filter on his computer and said that it was most likely a male voice, but he couldn't figure out what it was saying.
And I think that's one of the toughest things more recently, probably within the past 10 years or so.
I should also mention that the 5 of us in that room were the only ones in the house at that time. This is where I can feel for investigators that are constantly feeling the browbeating of naysayers. Can I prove to any of you right now that we were the only ones in the house as I claim? No. But I can tell you that being the one that found this EVP, I know what I hear on our microphone, which I didn't hear in the moment. Does that make me a believer? No. Does it pique my interest? Yes.
And I think that's one of the toughest things more recently, probably within the past 10 years or so.
I'm told that you can go through multiple investigations before finding any kind of evidence. So the fact that Rise Up and my crew found 2 pieces of evidence between us was surprising. Well, that is until I found out that the Payne House has been a hotbed of paranormal activity for Rise Up over the years. Ken played some more EVPs and one creepy piece of visual evidence.
And I say C, and you say...
This EVP goes right in line with all the Sarah Elizabeth interaction that Rise Up has experienced. They were trying to get some intelligent responses, and it sounds like they did.
And I say C, and you say...
You can hear a faint voice say D. It's the voice of a young girl. Maybe Sarah Elizabeth?
And I say C, and you say...
The next one Ken shared with me was a response an investigator got regarding a fire station that, at the time, was across the street from the Payne House.
When the fire trucks leave, do they make you afraid? The loud noise that they make? Yeah.
This didn't sound so faint like you would expect from an EVP. It sounded like it could have been anyone in the room, but Ken says it wasn't, and honestly, I believe him. He has not given me any reason to doubt his validity.
When the fire trucks leave, do they make you afraid? The loud noise that they make? Yeah.
The last piece of evidence was visual. It didn't happen the night that we were there, but on another investigation with a local film crew. Yep, that is a rocking chair, rocking on its own. It's grainy too because the original footage had it in the background and out of focus because there was a host in the foreground. The tough part for me, from a believability standpoint, is how do I know that there wasn't anybody on that TV crew just out of reach of the camera's eye? Remember, I got burned by a potentially deceitful investigator once upon a time.
What the hell?
To put myself in Ken's shoes, or any other investigators for that matter, they are always going to be fighting an uphill battle. There is always going to be the jerk, and I know there are some of you watching right now that will always say it's a hoax. Look, until someone comes out with a Barbara Walters interview with a ghost, it seems like the evidence against will always outweigh the personal experiences.
Everyone's got these EVP meters, all this sort of electronic equipment, which you guys have too. But a lot of these ghost stories that started these groups were people who would see full-bodied apparitions in front of them. Why is it so difficult to find this stuff with all this equipment?
Well, most of the time there is no, there's no kid out there that says, okay, you have to have an EVP recorder, you have to have, an IR camera, you have to have this certain equipment, because to be honest with you, no one really knows what people are seeing. Is it a ghost? Is it an apparition? Is it just a figment of their imagination? But how do you measure the unknown?
Right.
And we typically just kind of find certain scientific processes to kind of go through and try to determine and rule out most of the things. Like we know with the electromagnetic field, if you were close to a large magnetic field, it actually will distort your brain waves. You actually start either hallucinating or hearing things, and that could actually be ruled out as possible paranormal activity. So we don't actually know what tools work the best. We just try to rule out certain, environmental anomalies that could cause some of these things that people are seeing.
I think a lot of it is if you think you saw something out of the corner of your eye and it's similar enough, then you're gonna say, yeah, I saw it, it's right over there.
Right.
It's tough to say. A lot of the things are people waking up at night and they see something. Probably still dreaming, So, there's a lot of things. I don't think it's ever gonna be yes or no. And it's probably better that way, because you're never gonna take somebody that doesn't believe completely and make them believe. And it's probably not your right to try to.
I honestly think that it's human perception.
Yeah.
I think the greatest advances in this field will probably not be through the technological end, as far as, recorders and meters and things that light up and, supposedly signal the presence of a ghost. I think we're going to learn more about ourselves and the way we think, because if you're in the right place at the right time, it's how your mind perceives things and also how they're being presented. So if we're to assume, and what we're always trying to prove is, upon our death, do we retain memories and personality and consciousness, what most people would term the soul? But do we retain all these characteristics? And if so, are we capable of presenting ourselves in a certain form? Someone who died very old might present themselves as a young man. Mm-hmm. But that, coupled with how the mind perceives what's being presented to it, is really like the interesting thing with me. And is that really what it is that people are experiencing? The right place at the right time. And there are a lot of theories of this, time slips, parallel dimensions and things like that. And at this point, they all have to be considered somewhat valid, because we don't have the answers yet. So I don't know if we ever will, but it's more the journey than the destination, I guess.
The toughest part to get around is that when it comes to the paranormal, and now mediums, these fields have a good deal of liars and used car salesmen. You get so frustrated and turned off by them that when you come across truthful people, you are already tainted. Going in, I didn't anticipate talking to one medium, let alone two. I never believed in their supposed abilities. After talking to Tiffany and Heather, however, I find myself believing more in spirit mediums than ghosts. I feel for honest groups like New England Ghost Hunters and Rise Up, because of all the oddballs and crooked groups that give this field a bad name. If paranormal investigations were filled with only Brian Simmonses and Ken DaCostas, maybe it would get more legitimate credit and less negative attention.